A taxing time for Donald Trump.
From the Battelle studio at WOSU at COSI, this is Columbus on the Record. Joining guest host Ann Fisher this week, Jim Siegel, State House reporter for the Columbus Dispatch, Chrissy Thompson, State House reporter for the Cincinnati Enquirer, Herb Asher, OSU political scientist, and Marianne Sharkey, public affairs consultant.
Presidential debate number 2 is Sunday night, and you can bet taxes and transparency will be topic number 1. This week, the New York Times published a 1990s Donald Trump tax return that showed he lost some $900 million, a loss that would have allowed him to avoid paying any federal income tax for 18 years.
His campaign was bragging, it makes him a genius. Here's my question. What kind of genius loses $1 billion in a single year? This is Trump to a T. He's taken corporate excess and made a business model out of it.
As a businessman and real estate developer, I have legally used the tax laws to my benefit and to the benefit of my company, my investors, and my employees. I mean, honestly, I have brilliantly used those laws.
The controversy renewed calls for Trump to release his tax returns, which in turn renewed calls for Clinton to release private emails and transcripts of Wall Street speeches. So, Chrissy Thompson, this counterpoint, whatever it is, will it continue? It's going to continue, but is it a viable comparison, or in any event, can it work for Trump?
So the problem with this is that it's really hard for the average person to relate to what Donald Trump is talking about. I don't think this is going to turn off any of his supporters per se, but there is kind of this attitude that he was a businessman. Anything he touches has turned to gold, and the fact that he lost so much money, which that might be realistic for entrepreneurs from time to time, but it's just not what the average person thinks. And the average person also doesn't relate to having that loss be able to carry over for so many years. This is actually a really unique tax break, so to speak, that real estate investors receive that the average person just can't relate to. And that is where it kind of hurts Donald Trump, I think. I mean, he has a point that the tax laws were set up that way. He actually lobbied for them personally on Capitol Hill to be set up that way. So to that extent, he has a point, but it's just really hard for the average person to relate to him.
Nobody would ever argue, and Trump's supporters have been very good at saying this, that his responsibility is to maximize his tax payments. None of us do that. But what people are forgetting is that tax returns tell you other information about the person. They tell you about their charitable contributions. They tell you what their business sources of income are. And so I don't think the issue will go away, because what you'll have here is Democrats saying, okay, Mr. Trump, you didn't pay any taxes, so you're paying at a 0 rate. Okay, that's fine. It's not fine, but where did the money come from? And of course, there are all these stories about, did he do business with Russian oligarchs? You might find that in the tax returns. Did he make any charitable contributions out of his own pocket? You might find that out. They may not want that information. That information might be more damaging, because I think people might be able to understand, what, he didn't give to charity?
Right, and it should be clarified or made clear that what was leaked to the New York Times was only the first 3 pages of a particular year. Right.
I think what he said about the income taxes during the debate, that makes me smart. I think many people were offended by it. Yeah. I know I was. I'm a small business owner. I pay a ton of taxes. Yeah. I pay a lot more taxes than Donald Trump. And of course his income is, and the other issue you have, everyone pays taxes who makes an income. The other issue you have is, how do you lose $1 billion off of a casino? I mean, casino owner. I mean, I cannot imagine a casino owner losing $1 billion unless he plays craps.
Pulling from the till.
That's right.
Yeah, the Clinton campaign actually had 2, very good comebacks when they said, who loses money owning casinos?
Right.
And then what was the other thing they said about? If you're smart not paying taxes, does that make the rest of us stupid? And I think that's really reflecting what.
I think you do feel like you're
Yeah,
stupid.
yeah.
I mean, I'm writing checks to the IRS in the state of Ohio, and I feel like an idiot compared to Donald Trump.
Or is he calling us an idiot?
Yes.
Yeah.
What about the idea of paying for the roads you drive on and paying for the infrastructure that government brings to bear in our lives every day?
It's not uncommon for the purpose of taxes to get lost in a campaign, and the fact that if we didn't pay them, things that you just mentioned would not occur anymore. Nor would the expansion of the military that Donald Trump wants to do, and other things like that. And those are the kind of things that at least when I saw that it wasn't about that he took advantage of a tax structure that obviously favors the wealthy, and he just exploited that. But it's, in 2012, he was among those saying, I cannot believe the 47% of lower and middle income earners in this country are not paying a federal income tax. He tweeted out the federal deficit is ballooning and these people aren't paying their fair share. I mean, this is a guy who knew he was not paying federal income tax, and yet he's criticizing people making $22,000 a year for their not paying. And I think that, to me, is where it really strikes as distasteful to see that he went so many years without paying an income tax.
It makes you wonder how much the drop in the polls, all things being equal, went right back to that remark, too.
I think partly that, but his follow-up on the debate, he was getting unhinged with the emails. And as each day went by, he gave the reporters more and more ammunition to talk about his wild comments. So
Well, Miss Universe was just unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah.
he followed up the very next day, and he went after her.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. And then you give her an opportunity to go on the air, and you have this debate that continues for 4 or 5 days. And any good political consultant, like I assume I would have advised the candidate, never say a word about that.
Shut up.
There you go, Donald Trump. Marianne can help you.
It's free advice from Marianne.
Your
Marianne
comment.
Sharkey.
That would be a great campaign commercial we haven't seen yet. Donald Trump criticizing people for not paying taxes when in fact, yeah,
I wouldn't
Interesting.
be surprised to see it.
yeah.
Indiana Governor Mike Pence and Virginia Senator Tim Kaine traded verbal blows in the one and only vice presidential debate of 2016. Pence came off as the calm counterpart to his running mate, while Kaine criticized him for not directly defending Trump on policy, temperament, and tax records.
Russia. Every president since Richard Nixon has done it, and Donald Trump has said, I'm doing business with Russia. The only way the American public will see whether he has a conflict of interest.
No, he hasn't said that.
Senator,
He
your
has,
time is
actually.
up. Governor.
Well, thanks. I just trying to keep up with the insult-driven campaign on the other side of the table.
I'm just saying facts about your running mate.
Yeah. Well,
And I know you can't defend.
Herb Asher, with just 31 days until the election, how much did this undercard debate even matter?
Not very much, but I thought the Washington Post got it right by saying Pence wins, Trump loses. And in part because, Pence was in an impossible position and handled it, I thought actually quite well in a very serene fashion. But when he didn't defend his running mate, you knew then that would in fact be a story for the next day. When he in fact sort of denied things that Donald Trump had said, you knew that would be a story in the media for the next couple of days. So the follow-up to the debate, I think, was actually not very helpful to the Trump campaign. But that evening, certainly, if you shut off the sound and just looked at the two candidates, you'd say, oh, Mike Pence seems so calm and serene. But the follow-up, I think, really was not very helpful to the Trump campaign. And I don't blame Mike Pence for that. There's certain things, if he started defending Donald Trump, that would have gotten him into trouble. Not defending him leaves the media to ask the question, why didn't you defend him? And then making clearly inaccurate statements about what Donald Trump had said or not said guarantees that the media are going to follow up on that. So I think all told, I think the Clinton campaign was actually happy about the post-debate follow-up.
Well, I mean, Mike Pence, you can't defend the indefensible. And he's a smart guy, and he's, a conservative. And actually, I think like just about every mainstream Republican sitting there watching the debate was saying, boy, I wish he was our candidate. And,
the polls are showing
the polls are showing he could beat Hillary. And I think Mike Pence did a good job. I mean, some say he was setting himself up for 2020. That may be. But I think he was definitely trying to save his own political career.
You know, the question is, these debates, the vice presidential debates, they don't move a lot of undecided voters. And we honestly don't have that many undecided voters in the U.S. We do have a lot of Republicans who are not thrilled with Donald Trump and maybe are on the fence as far as whether they're going to go to the polls, whether they're going to vote according to party lines. And in the debate, Mike Pence handled things in a way that would encourage those folks. You know, just from his demeanor, he was interacting with the camera. You could see, you know, he knew who his audience was. He was kind of reacting the whole time that Tim Kaine was speaking.
A former broadcaster, should be said.
Indeed, yeah, but that comes across. You know, and a lot of people do say to watch it with the sound off, and I did for quite some time because I was trying to prove a point to a couple of the people I was watching it with that I thought he was just on pure like people watching the debate. He was winning, and it came through.
I found it interesting. What a reversal from 4 years ago, where you had the vice presidential candidate, Sarah Palin, who was really scaring some people.
4 years ago.
That was 8 years. Sorry, 8 years ago. I'm mixing up my 8 years ago. But yeah, that's
Same diff.
right. 8 years ago. Sorry, where she, people, Republicans really, they liked McCain, but then she was worrisome, and then it's kind of flipped almost on the Republican side.
Right.
But I think the important part of the point about the vice presidential debate and the first presidential debate is that the follow-up in both weeks really were about Donald Trump and his flaws and frailties. So that meant another 2 weeks went by where the Republican message attacking Hillary really got submerged because they were in the posture of having to defend Donald Trump. And
And I think Pence was such a contrast to Donald Trump. I mean, clearly you don't want your loose cannon to be at the top of the ticket. If you're going to have a loose cannon, it better be second. But I mean, everyone was looking at Pence, and I think he did hurt Trump a little bit because people were saying, this guy, he's got the right temperament. He's very smart. He understands the issues. He's knowledgeable. He can't be tripped up.
And you can advocate these positions without insulting people, without going off the deep end. Yeah.
And it was funny that right after that, the next day, Donald Trump came out and said, Mike Pence did a tremendous job, and I'm getting a lot of the credit for that because I picked him.
Right. Yeah.
He just can't help it.
Yeah, well, he's true. I mean, he's true to himself. What about Tim Kaine?
Yeah, so Tim Kaine came out and said I shouldn't have interrupted so much. I mean, it was annoying. Yeah. I think everyone would agree with that.
Tim Kaine put on his prosecutor's hat, a litigator hat, and he really was trying to litigate the case. And I agree, he came off a little too hot on TV, but he was really a litigator.
Yeah. Tim Kaine, his political future really lies entirely in being Hillary Clinton's vice president. So, if she loses, he'll be back in the Senate. If not. And he can retire from the Senate. If not, he'll be vice president. He didn't disqualify himself from the office. The approach was annoying.
Yeah. The insiders, both in the press and in Washington, who know Tim Kaine, know he was doing exactly what Marianne said. He was playing a role that night. That wasn't his natural. He's a much more calm and much more civilized person, or whatever.
He probably had to do maybe shoot a little Red Bull before. Yeah.
Maybe one of the reasons it was so annoying is that it wasn't natural to him. So
he forced it.
Yeah.
But I think but his job was to get out as many of Donald Trump's lines that they thought were not good for Donald Trump and get them out there and force Mike Pence to either defend them, answer to them, not defend them. And on that respect, I think he was effective. Stylistically, he was not, but I don't think at the end of the day that's going to matter because we're going to have 2 more presidential debates and that'll be forgotten.
Well, Mike Pence just pretended like Donald Trump had never said any of those things. He just kept going on with it.
He did some people call it demurred, some people call it just, eyes, deer in a headlight looks with, I'm not responding to that. I'm not going there. No.
Well, then he talked a lot tougher about Russia than Trump has been willing to go. A lot tougher.
Contrasting with Trump.
Yeah.
Really, neither of these guys also had to answer to any questions about their actual history. I think a lot of people were surprised. I'm surprised to hear all of this discussion about 2020 for Mike Pence, whose political career was considered essentially dead, less than a year ago because of the LGBT RFRA stuff in Indiana. So, and that indeed, there's a lot of love for him right now with 2020 conversation, but that assuredly will come up when that happens, and I don't really think that it's realistic.
So there was a poll released on Twitter about the 2020 race. He was first. Kasich was sixth.
Good old sixth.
Like he can't, you know.
Well, that's a poll among likely voters, I guess, is what they call it, or whatever it is, and that's just what they had to eat for dinner last night, who they talked to last, the kind of a thing. So
it's totally unrealistic.
yeah.
You know, I mean,
Right, it was silly, but it was somebody somebody did it.
Well, turning to something else, Ted Strickland this week admitted he has a climb ahead of him if he wants to beat Senator Rob Portman. The latest average of polls shows the Republican with a comfortable 13 percentage point lead over the Democrat. This week, Strickland blamed the margin on outside money supporting Portman, and he suggested something fishy's going on with the Teamsters Union endorsement of Portman.
He may have done something that was unethical, perhaps even if it could be proven illegal, because the National Secretary Treasurer of the Teamsters Union was on C-SPAN, and he was asked very directly, why did you endorse Rob Portman? And he said, the sole reason, that's his word, the sole reason that we endorsed Senator Portman is that we got a commitment from him regarding how he would vote on one of our issues. That sounds like a tit for tat for me.
We checked the tape. The Teamsters official said Portman promised to stand with the union on pension reform. The Portman campaign denies any quid pro quo. So, Jim Siegel, is a tit for tat the same as a quid pro quo? Don't organizations such as the Teamsters, particularly when there's an endorsement at stake, routinely expect certain promises from candidates?
Yeah. If this is illegal, we're going to lock up about 100 senators right now, and over 400 House members, not to mention just about everybody at the State House.
Isn't that what they do?
Yeah, I mean that's. Honestly, I saw what Ken Hall, the Teamsters Secretary Treasurer, said, and I saw that, and I don't really understand if Ted Strickland really believes that this is something illegal, but quid pro quo is so hard to prove. And this, and look, I'm happy to be one to call it out, even when it may not be legally provable, even if it smells funny. This one is almost, sure, did Rob Portman introduce the Pension Accountability Act last October because he thought it might help with unions? I'm sure he was aware that he would get union support or they would like the fact that he introduced that. But does he support the bill? Well, probably, and sometimes that's how it works. It's just no way to know what's in his head. And I don't see how this is in any way going to be anything close to any legal act or even, frankly, unethical.
Yeah, your politicians are making promises all the time.
Exactly.
So what's the distinction then?
Well, really, the distinction would be if you really did promise a specific vote to take care of a specific problem for a certain amount of dollars. And Herb Surda on the Ohio Ethics Commission, he recognizes that. But when you make a commitment to do pension reform, that is very pro-union, and then the union decides, well, they like the fact that you're doing pension reform, that's perfectly legal, and everyone does it.
Yeah, I think you can summarize both answers saying it's called politics. It's the way the system operates.
Sure. In the interview that they're doing with him to try to decide if they're going to endorse him, what do you plan to do on this? I plan to vote for it. That's all legal. And then they decide afterwards, he said he would do it. Well, if they say to him, and there has to be proof too, which is just so hard. But if they say to him, we will endorse you if you vote this way, and often there's money attached to it also. Yeah. So I don't know if this endorsement comes with money.
Let's look at Ted Strickland. He was always the darling of the teachers' unions. What did he do? He went after charter schools all the time. Hated charter schools when he was governor. Was that a quid pro quo? I don't know. You could look at that.
One thing, that happened this year, and it was in Florida. The Trump organization gave a $25,000 contribution to the Florida Attorney General, who's a Republican, and she subsequently decided to drop the case against Trump University in Florida.
Yes.
even that would be okay, because you'd have a difficult time proving that she dropped the case before she got the money, but that doesn't pass the smell test, even if it technically is legal. But that's a very different kind of thing than what we're talking about. So again, I think the whole Teamster thing, that's just the way politics happens.
And another distinction, I think, maybe is that she has that power to do that, whereas a single vote on a bill
Good point,
isn't
yes.
necessarily going to guarantee anybody anything unless you control the committee or something like that.
Legally, they have to just be trading this for that. So.
Right, and the people who play in this arena know the rules, and they know how to get around them. They don't go in, as Chrissy said, and said, if you give me this vote, I've got this money for you. They'll say, you know, this pension issue is really important to us, and there's this bill out there, and, you know, we really are supporting a lot of members who are saying, coming out publicly in support of that bill.
Yeah.
And that's how things
exactly what
happen.
happens to what Jim just said.
And in this case, actually, the endorsement would actually be more important than the money. That the endorsement is much more relevant.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right. Moving on, the City of Columbus and the Fraternal Order of Police have reached a deal on officers wearing body cameras. City police will be allowed to review body cam footage before they file a report. Meanwhile, the fatal shootings of 2 African Americans this summer by Columbus police brought attention to the division's patrolling practices. Critics say an annual anti-crime program unfairly targets low-income communities of color. Despite protests for change, Columbus police insist this year's crime statistics show the summer program was a success. Marianne Sharkey, the city of Cleveland, has employed body cams for its police force for some time. Are there lessons there for the likes of Columbus law enforcement?
Well, I mean, I think you know the history of Cleveland, where we had several very high-profile and horrible police shootings, and that ushered in the era of bringing in the body cams. And the police chief on down in Cleveland now wear body cams. And the truth is that it protects the officers too. It protects the officers against people accusing them of beating them unjustifiably. The only time they are allowed to turn off their camera is with a supervisor's permission. And or if they go into a homeowner's house and the homeowner specifically says, I don't want your body cam on when you walk into my, but other than that, they run it all the time. And really the program has gone extremely smoothly in Cleveland, and that's very unusual because we've had a lot of problems in this police department.
Mm-hmm. And as far as these targeted policing initiatives, the summertime thing,
well,
for instance?
Like any neighborhood, you know where your high crime areas are. You know where you have lots of guns on the street. You know where you have lots of drugs, gang activity. So you have to. You take basically you take almost Cleveland takes almost a SWAT team in from time to time into these very high crime neighborhoods and cleans them out. And to be honest with you, the neighbors like it. It's very popular with the community.
Okay. Okay, it's time for our final off-the-record parting shots. Marianne Sharkey.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll take you back to Cleveland again. I'm hoping that the Indians make it all the way to the World Series. Cleveland has 2 championship teams, and we had a successful convention, so Cleveland's on a roll.
On eggshells right now.
The Browns are not there.
Yeah, that's right. Herb Asher?
I'm assuming every major newspaper in Ohio, now that the Enquirer has already endorsed Hillary Clinton, will endorse Hillary. And not that endorsements are that important per se, but with a very small number of undecided voters, if the Clinton campaign knows how to advertise these endorsements, that'll be beneficial to the campaign, assuming I'm right about the endorsements.
So is the National Enquirer still the only endorsement for Donald Trump?
His son-in-law's paper.
Oh, that's right. The New York Post, I think.
That's right, New York
the New
Post.
York Post. Okay.
Gary Johnson,
Yeah.
I think, has gotten more endorsements than Donald Trump.
Right.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
The Libertarian candidate who will not be on the under the Libertarian label on the Ohio ballot. Chrissy Thompson.
That's right. He will be on the ballot, just no L.
Right.
I said this earlier, but I just want to make this point again. Mike Pence is not going to be the Republican nominee in 2020. The end.
It's all a mirage.
People who like him, I just don't see it.
And Jim Siegel.
Yes. Well, just kind of following up on what Herb said, the Columbus Dispatch has not endorsed a Democrat in 100 years. 1916, Woodrow Wilson was the last Democrat that our paper endorsed. Our next presidential endorsement will be coming Sunday, and we'll see if that streak continues.
Do you have a prediction?
No. No. I don't predict what my editorial page is going to do.
What about the other papers in Ohio? Have any of them endorsed now? Smaller papers have? I know the Findlay Courier, I think, has.
Well, I know nationally Hillary's got 100 newspapers already.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how it's all followed down in Ohio, but I suspect Ohio papers will follow suit.
And some of the staunchly Republican papers like the Dallas Morning Herald and the Arizona paper have endorsed Hillary. They've never endorsed the Republic. And the Detroit News endorsed Gary Johnson. Couldn't bring themselves to.
I was really surprised by
the
that.
number of strong Trump supporters who care could fit around this table.
Yeah.
Well, as for my parting shot, I saw on Facebook today somebody wrote, I don't know who they are. I am really, really tired of all these political posts. Can't we just vote now and be done with it? No one is going to change their mind between now and November, are they? Okay, typically no, right? But this is a presidential election cycle like no other. Voters may need every single day before now and November 8th to be absolutely sure they are voting their heart and mind. I certainly encourage them to all take their time, think about this very carefully. That's Columbus on the Record for this week. I'm Ann Fisher. Please check us out online. We're on Facebook and Twitter. You can connect to all of that on our website. Again, I'm Ann Fisher. Have a good week.